Hey guys, tonight we are bottling the sun. The vineyards are empty, the leaves are turning gold, and the cellar is waiting. We are stepping into the medieval winery. We are going to watch the fruit of the earth transform into the drink of kings. This is a story about patience, chemistry, and the deep quiet of the underground. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. Now pour yourself a glass, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The harvest season is ending. You can feel it in the air, that shift from the thick heat of summer to the cool breath of autumn. The vineyards stretch out in long rows, their leaves no longer the deep green of July, but touched now with copper and amber. Most of the fruit has been taken. The vines look lighter somehow, unburdened. For weeks, the workers have been moving through the rows with baskets and knives, selecting clusters with care, and now the heavy work is nearly done. What remains are a few forgotten bunches, dark and wrinkled, too high or too hidden for the pickers to bother with. The birds will have those. The air smells different now. It smells of sweetness and transformation. Somewhere nearby, in the cool shadows of the cellar, fruit is already beginning its slow metamorphosis. The scent drifts up from below, through cracks in the stone, through the heavy wooden door that stands open at the top of the stairs. It is a smell that is both invitation and promise. Sugar turning, yeast waking, the very beginning of something ancient and inevitable. The cellar door is open, and you can see the stone steps leading down into darkness. They are worn smooth in the center from centuries of feet, generations of vintners carrying their precious cargo into the earth. The edges are sharper, less traveled. Moss grows in the corners where moisture collects. The door itself is thick oak, reinforced with iron bands that have rusted to a deep burnt orange. It is heavy. It takes two hands to move it. But today it stands wide, propped open with a wooden wedge, because today the last of the harvest is coming in. You can hear them before you see them. The sound of footsteps, many of them, and voices calling out instructions and encouragement. The workers are coming up from the lower vineyards, their baskets full. Some carry the baskets on their shoulders, others balance them on their heads with impressive steadiness. The baskets are woven from willow, flexible and strong, and they creak softly with each step. Inside, the grapes shift and settle, a soft, rustling sound like a whisper. And then they arrive. The first basket is lowered carefully near the cellar entrance, then another, then another. Soon there is a small mountain of baskets, each one brimming with fruit. The workers step back, wiping sweat from their foreheads, breathing heavily. They will rest now for a moment before the next phase begins. But you are here to witness what comes next. You are here to watch the transformation. The grapes are beautiful. There are thousands of them, tens of thousands, clustered in tight bunches that range in color from deep purple so dark it is almost black, to pale green that catches the light like jade. Each grape is perfect in its own way. Some are large and round, swollen with juice. Others are smaller, more compact. The skins are taut and smooth, and if you were to touch one, you would feel a slight give, the pressure of liquid beneath a thin membrane. But what is most remarkable, what catches your eye as you look more closely, is the dust. Every grape, every single one, is covered in a fine white powder. It looks almost like frost, a delicate coating that dulls the shine of the skin. This is not dirt. This is not residue from the vineyard. This is yeast, wild yeast. It lives on the skin of the fruit, invisible to the naked eye most of the time. But when it accumulates like this, when millions and millions of individual cells cluster together, you can see it. You can see the very thing that will transform this fruit into wine. The vintner arrives. You can tell him by the way he moves with confidence and purpose, and by the way the workers defer to him. He is not young, but he is not old either. His hands are stained purple at the fingertips from years of this work. He wears a simple tunic, already marked with juice from earlier in the day. He approaches the baskets and reaches in, selecting a cluster of dark grapes. He holds it up to the light, examining it. He nods. Good. These are good. He begins to speak, his voice low and steady, explaining what will happen next. The grapes must be moved to the treading vat. This is the first step. The juice must be released from the fruit, but not too violently, not in a way that crushes the seeds or breaks the stems in a way that would add bitterness. The old way, the best way, is with feet. Human feet, bare and clean, stepping rhythmically into the mass of grapes, breaking the skins gently, allowing the juice to flow. The workers begin to carry the baskets down the stone steps into the cellar. The air changes as you descend. It becomes cooler, damper. The stone walls seem to breathe. They are thick, built centuries ago, designed to maintain a constant temperature no matter what the weather does above. In summer, the cellar is a refuge from heat. In winter, it is warmer than the world outside. But always, always, it is cool enough for the wine, cool enough for the slow work of fermentation. The cellar is larger than you might expect. The ceiling is vaulted, supported by thick stone pillars. The floor is packed earth, dry and solid. Along the walls are barrels, dozens of them, each one holding wine from previous years. Some are still working, still fermenting, and if you listen closely, you can hear it. A faint bubbling, a whisper of carbon dioxide escaping through the bung. Life, invisible but undeniable. But your attention is drawn to the center of the room, where the treading vat waits. It is enormous. Made from thick oak planks bound together with iron hoops, it stands about waist high and is perhaps 12 feet across. The wood is dark and stained, saturated with decades of juice. The inside is slightly sloped toward the center, where there is a small drain hole, currently plugged with a wooden stopper. The workers begin to empty the baskets into the vat. They lift each one and tip it, and the grapes tumble out in a cascade of purple and green. The sound is soft, a rustling and rolling like stones in a stream. Cluster after cluster, basket after basket, the vat begins to fill. The pile grows higher. The different colors mix and swirl. Here and there you can see a grape that has already split, its juice leaking out, staining the others around it. It takes time to empty all the baskets. The workers move with steady rhythm, not rushing, not slowing. This is work they have done before many times. Finally, the last basket is emptied and the vat is full. The mound of grapes reaches nearly to the rim. It is a small mountain of potential waiting. The vintner removes his shoes. He rolls up his tunic to his knees. He washes his feet and legs in a bucket of clean water, scrubbing them carefully. This is important. Nothing must contaminate the must. Nothing but the fruit and the yeast that lives on its skin. He dries his feet on a clean cloth, and then he approaches the vat. There is a small wooden platform attached to the side of the vat, a few steps that allow him to climb up and over the rim. He steps onto it carefully, steadying himself with one hand on the edge of the vat. And then, with a deep breath, he steps in. His foot sinks into the grapes. They give way beneath his weight, cool and slightly resistant at first, and then yielding. He puts his other foot in. The sensation must be extraordinary. Thousands of grapes pressing against the soles of his feet, against his ankles. Cool, firm but soft. And then, as he shifts his weight, they begin to break. The sound starts quietly, a soft squish, then another. He takes a step and the grapes beneath his feet rupture. The sound becomes rhythmic, squish, splash, squish. He begins to move in a slow, deliberate pattern, lifting one foot and then the other, not stomping but pressing, allowing his weight to do the work. The grapes break open. The juice begins to flow. You can see it now, seeping out from beneath his feet, running in small rivulets down the pile. It is dark, almost black in the dim light of the cellar. It is thicker than you might expect, viscous with sugar and pulp. It pools in the low spots, filling in around the unbroken grapes. The smell rises with it, sweet and heady, filling the cellar. It is the smell of pure potential, of sugar that will become alcohol, of fruit that will become something more. The vintner continues his slow dance. Step, press, lift, step, press, lift. The rhythm is hypnotic. It is work, yes, but there is something meditative about it as well. This is not a task that can be rushed. This is a conversation between human and fruit, between intention and nature. He moves across the surface of the pile, his feet finding the firmest clusters, breaking them open, releasing their treasure. More workers join him now. Two more men climb into the vat, positioning themselves at different points. They begin the same slow rhythm, stepping and pressing. The sound multiplies. Squish, splash, squish. It echoes off the stone walls. It becomes a kind of music, unintentional but beautiful. Three sets of feet, moving at slightly different tempos, creating a complex rhythm that rises and falls. The level in the vat begins to change. As more and more grapes are broken, as more juice is released, the solid pile begins to compress and liquefy. What was a mound becomes a soup. The workers sink deeper with each step. The juice rises around their ankles, then their calves. It is cold at first, but their movement warms it. The motion of their feet mixes it, incorporates air, begins the earliest stage of fermentation. You can see the skins now, floating on the surface. They are lighter than the juice, and they rise, forming a layer on top. The vintner explains this as he works. The skins are important. They carry color and tannins. For red wine, they must stay in contact with the juice for days, sometimes weeks. The pigments in the skin will leach into the liquid, transforming it from pale gray-green to ruby to garnet. The tannins will give structure, will allow the wine to age. But for now, they float, a thick cap on the surface of the must. The workers continue their treading for what must be an hour, perhaps longer. Time moves differently in the cellar. There are no windows, no sun to mark the passing hours. There is only the rhythm of feet and the slow transformation of fruit into liquid. Eventually, the vintner signals for them to stop. They have done enough. Most of the grapes are broken now. The juice flows freely. What remains are skins and seeds and stems, suspended in the thick must. The workers climb out of the vat, their legs purple to the knee, dripping with juice. They rinse themselves with clean water, washing away the sticky sweetness. The vintner approaches the vat again, looking down into it with satisfaction. The surface is calm now, settling after the disturbance. He takes a long wooden paddle and reaches in, stirring gently, making sure the skins are well distributed. This is important. They must not all float to one side. The contact must be even. But there is more work to be done. The treading has released much of the juice, perhaps 60 or 70%, but there is more locked inside the skins, in the pulp. This is where the press comes in. The press stands against the far wall of the cellar. It is a massive thing, ancient and powerful. The base is a thick wooden trough, hollowed out from a single enormous log. It is lined with smaller slats that allow liquid to drain while containing solids. Above it is the pressing mechanism itself, a heavy wooden beam that extends back into a wall-mounted screw. The screw is as thick as a man's thigh, carved from hardwood and polished smooth by decades of use. The workers begin to transfer the must from the treading vat to the press. They use buckets, scooping out the mixture of juice and skins and seeds and stems. Each bucket is heavy, sloshing with liquid. They carry them carefully to the press and pour them into the trough. The juice runs through immediately, draining through the slats into a collection channel below. But the solids remain, piling up in the trough, a sodden mass of purple and green. It takes many trips to empty the treading vat. Back and forth, bucket after bucket. The workers move steadily, their arms straining with the weight. The trough fills with the grape solids, the pumice, as it is called. When the trough is nearly full, the vintner signals for them to stop. It is time to press. A wooden plate, nearly as large as the trough itself, is placed on top of the pumice. It fits snugly, designed to distribute pressure evenly. Then the great beam is lowered onto the plate. The end of the beam has a fitted socket that connects to the center of the plate. Everything is aligned, ready. The vintner and one of the stronger workers take hold of a long wooden lever that fits into the screw mechanism. This is how the press is operated. By turning the lever, the screw advances, pushing the beam down, which pushes the plate down, which presses the pumice. They begin to turn. At first it is easy. The lever swings smoothly. The screw turns with a creaking sound, wood on wood. The beam lowers incrementally. When it makes contact with the plate, the resistance begins. Now each turn of the lever requires effort. The workers lean into it, using their body weight. The screw turns. The beam descends. The pumice begins to compress. And then the juice begins to flow. At first it is just a trickle, a thin stream running from one corner of the trough. Then more. The pressure increases, and the juice is forced out of the grape skins, out of the pulp, through the slats of the trough. It runs in thick streams now, dark and rich, carrying suspended particles that will settle later. It flows into the collection channel, a carved wooden trough that guides it toward a large barrel positioned to receive it. The sound of the press is complex. There is the creak of the screw, regular and rhythmic as the workers turn the lever. There is the groan of the beam as it bears more and more pressure. There is the rush of liquid, constant now, pouring into the barrel. And underneath it all, a deep crushing sound, the pumice compacting, the cell walls rupturing, the very structure of the fruit breaking down. The workers continue to turn the lever. Each rotation becomes harder than the last. The resistance grows. Their muscles strain. Sweat beads on their foreheads despite the coolness of the cellar. The vintner watches carefully, judging the flow of juice, the color, the amount of pressure being applied. Too much pressure, and the seeds will crack, releasing bitter oils. Too little, and valuable juice will remain trapped. Turn, creak, turn, creak. The beam descends fraction by fraction. The juice flows in a steady stream, beginning to fill the barrel. You can see it now, pooling at the bottom, rising slowly. The color is magnificent, a deep garnet red with purple highlights. It is opaque, thick with suspended particles. This is not the clear wine you might be familiar with. This is must, raw and alive. After perhaps 20 minutes of steady pressing, the flow begins to slow. The workers turn the lever a few more times, extracting the last possible drops, and then the vintner signals them to stop. They release the lever, breathing heavily. The press has done its work. What remains in the trough is compressed pumice, still moist but no longer liquid. It will be removed later, perhaps spread on the fields as fertilizer, returning to the soil what the vines took from it. But for now, attention turns to the barrel. The vintner approaches it, carrying a small wooden cup. He dips it into the must, drawing up a sample. He holds it to the light, such as there is in the cellar. The must is dark, almost black, but when held to a candle you can see the deep red color glowing through. He brings it to his nose, inhaling deeply. The aroma is intense. Grape sugar, concentrated and sweet, with hints of the darker flavors that will develop during fermentation. And then he tastes it. He takes a small sip, rolling it around his mouth, coating his tongue. His expression is one of concentration, of evaluation. He is tasting the sweetness, yes, but also the acidity, the balance. Too sweet, and the resulting wine will be cloying, heavy. Too acidic, and it will be sharp, hard. The proportions must be right. He swallows, nods. Good, this will be good. He offers the cup to you, a gesture of sharing this moment. You take it, bring it to your lips, sip. The must is extraordinarily sweet, almost syrupy. It coats your mouth, fills it with the taste of ripe fruit and sunshine. There is a slight tartness beneath the sweetness, a hint of the acidity that will balance the wine eventually. And there is something else, something harder to define. Potential, promise. This liquid contains everything needed to become wine. It has the sugar that the yeast will consume. It has the acidity for balance. It has the tannins from the skins for structure. It has the wild yeast for transformation. All it needs now is time, and patience, and the cool darkness of the cellar. The barrel is not yet full. There is more must to be processed. The workers return to the treading vat, scooping out more of the mixture, refilling the press. The cycle repeats. The beam is raised, the wooden plate removed, the compressed pumice cleared away. Fresh pumice is loaded. The plate is repositioned. The beam is lowered. The lever is turned. The juice flows. This continues throughout the afternoon, batch after batch. The barrel fills slowly, steadily. The level rises from the bottom to the curve, from the curve to the narrowing neck. When it is nearly full, the vintner seals it with a loose wooden bung. The bung has a small hole drilled through it, just large enough for gases to escape but too small for air to easily enter. This is crucial. During fermentation, enormous amounts of carbon dioxide will be produced. If the barrel were sealed tightly, the pressure would build until the barrel exploded. But equally, too much air would allow the wine to oxidize and spoil. The balance is delicate. The barrel is rolled to its storage position along the wall. It joins the others, barrels from previous days, previous weeks. Some of them are already fermenting actively. You can hear it if you put your ear close to the bung. A soft hissing, a gentle bubbling. The yeast is at work inside, consuming sugar, producing alcohol and carbon dioxide and heat. The barrel is slightly warm to the touch, a few degrees warmer than the ambient temperature of the cellar. The process generates heat. Fermentation is exothermic. Life, even at the microscopic level, burns energy. The vintner places his hand on the barrel, feeling the warmth. He nods with satisfaction. The fermentation is proceeding well. In a few days, it will reach its peak. The yeast will be working frantically, multiplying, consuming sugar as fast as they can. The barrel will be noticeably warm. The bubbling will be constant, even vigorous. And then, slowly, as the sugar is depleted, the activity will decrease. The yeast will run out of food. The fermentation will slow, then stop. What remains will be wine, or close to it. It will still need time, weeks or months, to settle and clear and develop its full character. But the transformation will be essentially complete. But that is in the future. Right now, there is still work to be done. More baskets of grapes wait to be processed. The treading vat is refilled. The workers climb in again, resuming their rhythmic stepping. Squish, splash, squish. The sound fills the cellar. The juice flows. The pile compresses. The transformation continues. You stand in the cellar, watching this ancient process. You are witnessing something that humans have done for thousands of years in this same way with these same methods. The technology is simple but effective. Feet and pressure, time and temperature, yeast and sugar. The principles are unchanging. The chemistry is inevitable. Given the right conditions, grape juice will always become wine. It is not a matter of if, but when. The vintner understands this deeply. He has made wine for decades, as his father did before him and his father before that. He knows the rhythm of the seasons. He knows when to harvest, how to judge ripeness by taste and by touch. He knows how much pressure to apply in the press, how to listen to the fermentation, how to know when a wine is ready. This knowledge is not written in books. It cannot be learned from scrolls. It is passed down through demonstration, through apprenticeship, through years of work and observation. You watch him move through the cellar, checking on different barrels, tasting samples, making small adjustments. He adds a handful of grape stems to one barrel, claiming it needs more tannin. He moves another barrel slightly, positioning it in a cooler spot to slow its fermentation. Each decision is based on experience, on intuition, on a deep familiarity with the process. He is not controlling the fermentation so much as guiding it, creating the conditions for the yeast to do their work. The afternoon stretches into evening. The light outside begins to fade. In the cellar, it makes little difference. The candles continue to burn, casting their warm glow on the stone walls. The workers continue their labor, though they move a bit more slowly now. They are tired. This is hard work, physical and demanding, but there is satisfaction in it too. There is the satisfaction of seeing the fruits of the harvest transformed, of knowing that their labor will result in something valuable, something that will bring pleasure to many. Finally, the last basket is emptied. The last batch of grapes is tread. The last pressing is completed. The must flows into the final barrel, filling it to the bung. The workers step back, surveying their work. Dozens of barrels line the walls, each one full of must, each one beginning its slow transformation. The cellar is full of potential energy, of transformation waiting to happen. The vintner thanks the workers. They wash their hands and feet one final time, rinsing away the stickiness. They put on their shoes, gather their things. They will return tomorrow and the day after to continue the work. There are still grapes in the vineyard, still fruit to be harvested. But for today, the work is done. You remain in the cellar a while longer. The workers file up the stone stairs, their voices echoing in the space, growing fainter. The door remains open, but the light outside is nearly gone. The cellar is filled with shadow and candlelight. The barrels stand in silent rows, their contents already beginning the long transformation. You can hear the soft bubbling from some of them, a gentle sound like a small stream. It is the sound of fermentation, the sound of chemistry, the sound of life. You approach one of the barrels that was filled today. You place your hand on its side. It is still cool, the must inside not yet warm with fermentation. That will come in a day or two, when the yeast population has grown large enough to generate significant heat. But already the process has begun. Even now, at this very moment, individual yeast cells are consuming sugar molecules, splitting them apart, rearranging their atoms into new compounds. Glucose becomes ethanol and carbon dioxide. The transformation is invisible but inexorable. The vintner comes to stand beside you. He places his hand on the barrel as well, feeling the same coolness. He knows what is happening inside, even though he cannot see it. He knows that the wild yeast from the grape skins has already begun to multiply. He knows that as the yeast population grows, the fermentation will accelerate. He knows that in a few days this barrel will be warm, almost hot, and the bubbling will be vigorous. He knows that after a few weeks the fermentation will slow and eventually stop, leaving behind wine. He knows all this because he has seen it happen hundreds of times. But he also knows that each fermentation is unique, that each barrel will develop its own character, influenced by subtle variations in the grapes, in the yeast strains, in the temperature of the cellar. Two barrels filled on the same day with grapes from the same vineyard can produce wines that taste noticeably different. This is the mystery and the magic of winemaking. This is why it is as much art as science. You ask him about the must, about what happens next. He smiles, pleased by the question. He begins to explain in his slow, measured way. The must, he says, is the very beginning. It is grape juice, but it is more than that. It contains everything needed for wine. The sugar will feed the yeast. The acid will provide balance and preserve the wine from spoilage. The tannins from the skins will give structure and allow the wine to age. The wild yeast will perform the transformation. He dips a cup into the nearest barrel, draws up a sample of the must. It is thick and dark, almost black in the candlelight. He holds it up, showing you the way it clings to the sides of the cup, the way it moves slowly, heavily. This is liquid sugar, he explains. In a few days, it will begin to lighten, to thin, as the sugar is converted to alcohol. The color will shift from purple-black to ruby red. The sweetness will decrease as the alcohol content increases. The transformation will be visible, measurable. But more than that, he continues, the must carries the character of the vintage. It carries the story of the growing season. A hot summer produces grapes with higher sugar content, which will result in stronger wine with more alcohol. A cool, wet summer produces grapes with more acidity, which will result in lighter, crisper wine. The timing of the harvest matters too. Grapes picked early are tart and fresh. Grapes picked late are sweet and rich. Every decision the vintner makes, from when to harvest to how long to press, will influence the final character of the wine. He takes a sip of the must, his expression thoughtful. This year's must is well balanced, he declares. The summer was good, warm, but not too hot. There was rain in the spring to swell the grapes, and then dry weather in the late summer to concentrate their flavors. The harvest was timed well, the grapes picked at the peak of ripeness. This will be a good vintage. Not perfect, perhaps, but good. Very good. He offers you another taste. You sip the must again, trying to taste what he tastes, to read the story in the liquid. It is impossibly sweet, coating your tongue and throat. There is a richness to it, a depth of flavor that goes beyond simple grape juice. There are hints of other flavors already present, buried in the sweetness. Dark fruit, a touch of spice, a mineral quality, perhaps from the soil in which the vines grew. This must, this sticky, sweet liquid, contains the potential for all of that and more. Given time and the right conditions, it will transform into something complex and nuanced, something that can be sipped and savored, something that can improve with years or decades of aging. But right now, at this moment, it is raw potential. It is sugar and sun. It is the earth made liquid. It is the harvest captured and contained. The vintner returns the cup to its hook and begins to move through the cellar, checking each barrel one final time before leaving for the night. He taps each one gently with his knuckles, listening to the sound. A full barrel has a deep, resonant tone. An underfilled barrel sounds hollow. He adjusts bungs, wipes away spilled must, makes sure everything is in order. This is his routine, performed every night without fail. The wine is his responsibility, his livelihood, his art. He pauses at one of the older barrels, one that has been fermenting for several weeks. The bung on this barrel is different, more solid, with only a tiny hole for gases to escape. He removes it carefully and brings his nose close to the opening. He inhales deeply. The smell that emerges is different from the must. It is sharper, more complex. There is still fruit there, but now there is alcohol too, and a yeasty quality, and something else, something harder to define. The wine is developing its personality. He invites you to smell. You lean in cautiously, not sure what to expect. The aroma is powerful, almost overwhelming. It fills your nose and sinuses. There is fermented fruit, yes, but also a pungent sharpness, a slight sourness, a hint of something almost salty. This is wine in the making. This is transformation in progress. In a few more weeks, these sharp edges will soften. The flavors will integrate and harmonize. But right now, it is still rough, still finding its balance. The vintner replaces the bung, satisfied with what he smelled. The fermentation is proceeding as it should. There is no off aroma, no hint of spoilage or contamination. The wine will be good. He makes a mental note to taste it again in a week to track its progress. This is the constant work of the vintner, this watching and waiting, this gentle guidance of a natural process. Finally, his inspection is complete. All the barrels are in order. The new must is safely contained and beginning its transformation. The older wines are developing well. There is nothing more to be done tonight. The cellar will do its work in darkness, in silence. The yeast will consume and multiply. The wine will evolve. Tomorrow there will be more to do, more grapes to process, more barrels to fill. But for now, the day's work is finished. He walks toward the stairs, and you follow. At the base of the steps, he turns and looks back at the cellar one last time. The candlelight flickers across the rows of barrels, creating moving shadows on the stone walls. The air is heavy with the sweet smell of fermentation. Somewhere in the darkness, a barrel bubbles softly, the sound barely audible but constant. This is the sound of transformation. This is the sound of patience and chemistry and time. He climbs the stairs slowly, his legs tired from a long day. You follow, stepping carefully on the worn stone. At the top, he takes hold of the heavy oak door and begins to pull it closed. The cellar is secure enough, but he prefers to keep it shut at night, to maintain the constant temperature, to keep out animals and curious children. The door swings on its iron hinges with a deep groan. The opening narrows, the view of the cellar shrinking. One last glimpse of the barrels, the candles, the shadows. And then the door closes with a solid thud. He slides the iron bolt into place. The cellar is sealed. Inside, in the cool darkness, the work continues. The yeast multiply and consume. The sugar transforms into alcohol. The must slowly becomes wine. It is a process that cannot be rushed, that cannot be controlled beyond creating the right conditions. It is a process that has been happening for thousands of years, in cellars like this, all over the world. It is ancient and inevitable and beautiful. The vintner turns away from the cellar door and looks out over the darkening vineyard. The rows of vines are barely visible now, silhouettes against the last light in the western sky. The leaves rustle gently in the evening breeze. The harvest is nearly complete. Soon the vines will rest, conserving their energy through the winter, preparing for next year's growth. And in the spring, the cycle will begin again. Buds will form, shoots will emerge, flowers will bloom, fruit will set. And when summer comes, the grapes will swell and ripen, drawing sugar from the sun and minerals from the soil, preparing themselves for the harvest, for the treading vat, for the press, for the transformation. This is the rhythm of the vintner's life. This is the cycle that repeats year after year, generation after generation. It is work that is both physically demanding and deeply satisfying, work that connects the vintner to the earth and to the seasons and to the ancient human tradition of making wine. It is work that produces something valuable, something that brings joy and pleasure, something that can transform a simple meal into a celebration. You stand beside him in the gathering darkness, looking out over the vineyard. The air is cool and smells of damp earth and turning leaves. Somewhere in the distance, you can hear the evening song of birds settling in for the night. The day is ending. The harvest season is ending. But in the cellar below, in the darkness, the wine is just beginning. The transformation has started. The yeast are working. The sugar is becoming alcohol. The must is becoming wine. And tomorrow the work will continue. More grapes will be picked. More baskets will be carried to the cellar. More treading, more pressing, more barrels filled. Day after day until the last grape is harvested, until the last barrel is sealed, until the vineyard is empty and the cellar is full. And then the waiting will begin. The long, patient waiting for the wine to ferment and age and develop its full character. Weeks will pass, months, perhaps years for the finest vintages. But that is tomorrow's work and next month's and next year's. Tonight the vintner is tired. His feet ache from standing. His arms are sore from turning the press. His hands smell of grape juice, a smell that no amount of washing will completely remove. But he is satisfied. It has been a good day. The harvest is proceeding well. The must is balanced and promising. The wine will be good. He bids you good night and turns toward his dwelling. You watch him walk away, his figure growing indistinct in the darkness. And then you are alone in the quiet evening, standing before the sealed cellar door. You can imagine what is happening below. The yeast multiplying in the warm must, the bubbles of carbon dioxide rising to the surface, the slow, inexorable transformation of sugar into alcohol. You cannot see it, cannot hear it from up here, but you know it is happening. You know that right now, at this very moment, the ancient chemistry of fermentation is at work. You place your hand on the heavy oak door. The wood is cool and slightly rough. On the other side, in the darkness, the wine is becoming. That is the best way to think of it. Not being made, but becoming. The vintner provides the grapes and the press and the barrels. He creates the conditions, but the yeast do the work. The chemistry does the work. The wine becomes itself. You turn away from the cellar and begin to walk back toward the main house. The path is familiar enough to follow even in the near darkness. The stones are smooth underfoot. The air is sweet with the smell of fermentation that drifts from the cellar. It is everywhere at this time of year, this smell of transformation. It is the smell of the harvest. It is the smell of wine coming into being. As you walk, you think about what you have witnessed today. The arrival of the grapes, thousands of them, each one a small package of sugar and acid and flavor. The treading vat, and the rhythmic work of breaking the grapes, releasing their juice. The sound of it, squish, splash, squish, almost musical in its repetition. The press, with its massive beam and creaking screw, squeezing the last drops from the skins. The flow of must, dark and thick, filling the barrels. And the must itself, impassably sweet, containing everything needed to become wine. It is all so simple, really. Grapes and thyme and yeast. And yet the result is something complex and nuanced, something that humans have valued for millennia. Wine is ancient. It appears in the oldest written records. It was made by the Egyptians, by the Greeks, by the Romans. It was made in the medieval monasteries, carefully cultivated by monks who understood that wine was both practical and sacred. It is made today in thousands of cellars, from the most sophisticated modern winery to the simple underground room you have just left. The methods have changed little. The principles remain the same. The transformation is inevitable. Given grapes and yeast and time, wine will happen. The vintner is not so much creating as facilitating, not so much making as allowing. This is the humility of the craft, the understanding that the vintner is in partnership with nature, not in control of it. You reach the main house and pause at the door. Warm light spills from the windows. You can smell cooking, bread, and something roasting, the ordinary comforts of home. But in the cellar behind you, in the cool darkness, something extraordinary is happening. The must is fermenting. The yeast are multiplying. The sugar is transforming. The wine is becoming. This is the magic of the vintner's art. This is the transformation that has fascinated humans for thousands of years. From simple fruit to complex wine, from sweetness to alcohol, from harvest to celebration. It is chemistry and craft and patience. It is science and art and tradition. It is the work of many hands and many days, and the slow, invisible work of countless yeast cells. And it all begins with the must, the sticky, sweet juice of pressed grapes, liquid sugar, captured sunshine, the very beginning of the journey from vineyard to glass, from earth to celebration. This is what you have witnessed today. This is the start of the transformation. This is bottling the sun. The must waits in the treading vat, thick and dark, still warm from the work of feet and hands. The surface is calm now, settling after the disturbance. Small particles drift slowly downward through the liquid, catching what little light penetrates the cellar. The skins float in a dense layer on top, forming a cap that will need to be pushed down regularly to keep the contact between skin and juice even. But first, the must needs to be moved. It needs to find its home in the oak barrels, where it will spend the next weeks, the next months, transforming. The barrels stand ready along the stone walls of the cellar. They are massive, these vessels, some of them taller than a man. Each one was crafted by a cooper, a barrel maker whose skill is as essential to the vintner's work as the grapes themselves. The oak was selected carefully, split along its grain, shaped with heat and steam and pressure into curved staves that fit together so perfectly they require no glue, no sealant. Only the natural swelling of wet wood against iron hoops keeps them watertight. The barrels are works of art in their own right, functional sculptures that have served for years and will serve for years more. The vintner runs his hand along the side of the nearest barrel. The wood is smooth from use, darkened by decades of wine. The iron hoops are firm, showing no signs of rust or weakness. He taps the barrel with his knuckles, listening to the hollow resonance. Empty, ready to receive. This barrel has held wine from countless vintages, each one leaving its subtle mark, seasoning the wood, building up layers of flavor that will be imparted to every wine that follows. The work of transfer begins. Two workers position a large wooden bucket beneath the spigot of the treading vat. The spigot is a simple device, a wooden peg that fits snugly into a hole drilled near the bottom of the vat. When removed, the must will flow. The vintner checks that the bucket is properly positioned, then nods. One of the workers grasps the peg and pulls. It comes free with a wet, sucking sound. The must begins to flow immediately. It pours in a thick stream, dark as ink, splashing into the bottom of the bucket. The sound is hollow at first, a deep resonance as the liquid strikes the wood. But as the bucket fills, the pitch changes, rising gradually as the distance between the surface of the must and the bottom of the bucket decreases. The stream is steady, controlled by the size of the hole. Not too fast, not too slow. Just enough to fill the bucket in a minute or two without splashing excessively. The first bucket fills quickly. A worker replaces the peg, stopping the flow. He lifts the bucket, testing its weight. Heavy, perhaps 50 pounds of must, maybe more. He carries it carefully to the wading barrel, his arms straining, his steps deliberate. Another worker helps him lift it. Together they tip the bucket, pouring the must into the barrel. The sound is extraordinary. When the must first hits the bottom of the empty barrel, it makes a deep, booming splash that echoes off the barrel's interior walls. The sound is hollow and resonant, musical almost. As more must is added, the pitch changes, becoming higher, more liquid. The barrel begins to fill from the bottom up, the level rising incrementally with each bucket. Back and forth the workers go, remove the peg, fill the bucket, replace the peg, carry the bucket, pour. The rhythm is steady and meditative. Splash, boom, splash. The sounds overlap and echo in the stone cellar. Each bucket adds its voice to the growing chorus. The barrel slowly fills, the level of must visible through the opening at the top, rising inch by inch. The work is hard. The buckets are heavy and awkward. The stone floor of the cellar is slightly uneven, and the workers must watch their footing. Spilled must is sticky and slippery, and the vintner insists on cleanliness. Any spills are wiped up immediately with clean rags. The cellar floor must remain as clean as possible to prevent contamination, to keep insects and vermin away. Wine is delicate, especially in these early stages. It can turn to vinegar if exposed to the wrong bacteria. It can spoil if oxygen gets in too freely. Every precaution must be taken. The first barrel is nearly full now. The vintner watches the level carefully. Too full, and there will be no room for the must to foam and bubble during the vigorous fermentation that is coming. Too little, and there will be too much air space, which could lead to oxidation. The level must be just right, about 4 fingers width below the top of the barrel. When it reaches that point, he signals the workers to stop. This barrel is ready. He takes a long wooden paddle and reaches into the barrel, stirring the must gently. The cap of grape skins has begun to form on the surface, and he breaks it up, pushing the skins down into the liquid. This is important. The skins carry the color and the tannins. They must remain in contact with the fermenting juice for days, sometimes weeks, for red wine. But they are lighter than the liquid and will naturally rise to the top. The vintner must push them down regularly, mixing them back into the must, ensuring even extraction. The stirring creates a soft sloshing sound, liquid against wood. The must swirls in the barrel, the skins tumbling through it like dark leaves in a stream. The vintner can feel the resistance of the liquid, thick with sugar and suspended particles. He stirs for a minute, maybe 2, making sure the skins are well distributed. Then he withdraws the paddle and sets it aside. Now comes a crucial decision. Should he seal the barrel or leave it open? During the most vigorous fermentation, the barrel must be left open or fitted with a very loose bung to allow the enormous quantities of carbon dioxide to escape. But right now, before fermentation has really begun, he wants to minimize air contact. He selects a wooden bung, not the permanent kind that will be hammered in at the end, but a loose-fitting temporary bung with a hole drilled through it. He sets it gently into the opening at the top of the barrel. Gases can escape, but air cannot easily enter. Perfect. The workers have already begun filling the next barrel. The process repeats, bucket after bucket, the hollow splash of must hitting wood, the rising pitch as the barrel fills, the careful monitoring of the level, the gentle stirring to distribute the skins, the placement of the bung, and then on to the next barrel. It takes hours to transfer all the must from the treading vat to the barrels. The light in the cellar shifts as the afternoon wears on, though in the depths of the underground room the change is subtle. The candles continue to burn, their flames steady in the still air. The workers continue their labor, moving with patient determination. This is not work that can be rushed. Each step must be done carefully, correctly. The quality of the wine depends on it. Finally, the last bucket is poured. The treading vat is nearly empty, only a small amount of must remaining in the very bottom, too little to be worth transferring. This will be discarded or perhaps given to the workers to drink fresh. It is sweet and pleasant, though it is not wine, not yet. The barrels stand in their places along the walls, each one filled with must, each one ready to begin its transformation. The vintner walks along the row of barrels, checking each one. He peers into the openings, examining the surface of the must. He presses his ear to the side of each barrel, listening. It is too early for fermentation sounds, but he listens anyway, out of habit, out of the constant attentiveness that good wine-making requires. Satisfied, he moves to the center of the cellar and waits. And now the magic begins. It does not happen immediately. The first hours after filling are quiet. The must rests, settling, its temperature slowly equilibrating with the cool air of the cellar. The yeast cells that came in on the grape skins, millions and millions of them, are dispersed through the liquid. They are inactive, dormant, but the conditions are perfect for them to wake. There is abundant sugar. There is moisture. The temperature is moderate. They need only time to begin their work. The first sign comes perhaps 12 hours later. The vintner returns to the cellar in the morning, descending the stone steps with a candle in hand. The air smells different. There is the sweet smell of must, yes, but underneath it something else, something sharper. A faint hint of alcohol, a slight tang of carbon dioxide. He smiles. It has begun. He approaches the first barrel and peers inside. The surface of the must is no longer perfectly still. There are tiny bubbles forming, so small they are barely visible, but there. They rise slowly through the thick liquid, breaking on the surface with the faintest of sounds. Pop, 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 barely audible, but there. The song of the wine has started to play. Over the next few days, the fermentation intensifies. The yeast population explodes. Each cell divides, becomes two. Two become four. Four become eight. The growth is exponential. Within days, there are billions upon billions of yeast cells in each barrel, all of them consuming sugar, all of them producing alcohol and carbon dioxide and heat. The change is dramatic. The barrels that were cool to the touch become warm. You can feel it if you place your hand on the oak, a gentle warmth radiating from within. The must inside is several degrees warmer than the cellar air, heated by the metabolic activity of the yeast. This is life at work. This is biology, chemistry, transformation. The sound grows louder. What began as occasional tiny pops becomes a constant gentle hissing. If you put your ear close to the bung, you can hear it clearly. HSSSSSS, like a soft breath, but continuous. It is the sound of carbon dioxide escaping, millions of bubbles rising through the liquid, breaking at the surface, releasing their gas into the air above. The vintner visits the cellar multiple times each day now. He checks the temperature of each barrel, placing his hand on the oak, feeling for the warmth. Too hot, and the fermentation will become uncontrolled, producing off flavors. Too cool, and it may stall, leaving residual sugar that could spoil later. The temperature should be warm but not hot, like a sleeping body. He removes the bungs one by one, peering inside. The surface of the must is now alive with bubbles. It looks almost like it is boiling, though of course it is not. The bubbles are everywhere, rising in streams, creating a constant churning motion. The cap of grape skins has risen to the top, pushed up by the bubbling, and it sits there like a thick raft, bobbing gently. He takes his long wooden paddle and pushes the cap down. It resists at first, buoyant with trapped gas, but then it gives way, sinking into the must. He stirs, mixing the skins back into the liquid. This is essential work, performed twice daily during active fermentation. The skins must stay in contact with the must to give up their color and tannins. If left floating on top, the extraction will be incomplete, the wine pale and thin. As he stirs, more bubbles are released, rising in a vigorous stream. The hissing sound intensifies. The smell is powerful now, filling the cellar. It is the smell of fermentation, complex and layered. There is fruit, yes, but also yeast, a bread-like aroma, and alcohol, sharp and clean, and carbon dioxide, which has a faint prickle to it. Together, these smells create the distinctive perfume of a working cellar, a smell that is both familiar and mysterious. He replaces the bung and moves to the next barrel. The process repeats. Remove the bung. Observe, stir down the cap. Replace the bung. Each barrel is at a slightly different stage. Some are fermenting more vigorously than others, their temperature a bit higher, their bubbling more active. This is normal. Each batch of must is unique, with its own balance of sugar and acidity, its own population of wild yeast strains. They will all get to the same place eventually, but each at its own pace. The days pass. The fermentation continues. The cellar is never silent now. There is always the soft hissing from one barrel or another, a constant background music. At night, when the vintner lies in his bed in the house above, he can hear it faintly if he listens carefully. The song of the wine. It is a reassuring sound, a sound that tells him all is well, the transformation is proceeding as it should. He dreams of the cellar sometimes, dreams of walking between the rows of barrels, hearing them bubble and hiss, feeling their warmth. In his dreams, he can see into the barrels, can watch the yeast at work, can see the sugar molecules being broken apart and rearranged. It is a beautiful dream, a dream of transformation and chemistry and life. After about a week, the most vigorous fermentation begins to slow. The yeast have consumed much of the readily available sugar. The alcohol content is rising, and alcohol is toxic to yeast in high concentrations. The fermentation continues, but less intensely. The bubbling decreases. The temperature of the barrels begins to drop, slowly returning to the ambient temperature of the cellar. The vintner monitors this transition carefully. He tastes samples from each barrel using a small wooden cup attached to a long handle. He dips it into the must, draws it up, examines the liquid in the candlelight. The color has changed. What was purple-black is now ruby-red, bright and clear. The transformation of color is one of the most visible signs that the must is becoming wine. He brings the cup to his nose, inhaling deeply. The aroma is no longer the simple grape sweetness of the must. It is more complex now. There is fruit, dark cherry and plum. There is a hint of spice. There is the yeasty smell of active fermentation, though it is softer now. And underlying it all is alcohol, clean and sharp. He tastes. The liquid is no longer sweet. Most of the sugar has been converted. What remains is dry, almost astringent, with bright acidity and firm tannins from the grape skins. The alcohol warms his throat. This is young wine, rough and unfinished, but the bones are there. With time, with aging, it will soften and integrate and become something worthy. He makes notes in his mind. This barrel is fermenting well. That one is a bit behind, still showing more sweetness. This one is particularly tannic, might need more time in barrel to soften. Each barrel is developing its own character, and the vintner must track them all, must know each one intimately. As the fermentation slows further, it is time to make a decision. The wine cannot stay on the grape skins indefinitely. The skins have given up their color and tannins, and if left too long, they will begin to impart harsh, bitter flavors. The wine must be separated from the solids, must be clarified. This is called racking, and it is one of the most delicate operations in winemaking. The vintner prepares for racking several weeks after the initial fermentation began. The bubbling has nearly stopped. The wine is still slightly cloudy, but much clearer than it was. Most importantly, the heavy solids, the grape skins and seeds and fragments of stem, have settled to the bottom of the barrel, forming a thick layer of sediment called lees. Fresh barrels are prepared, cleaned and inspected. They are similar to the fermentation barrels, but have been emptied and rinsed. The vintner checks each one for any off smells, any sign of contamination. The barrels must be clean, neutral vessels ready to receive the young wine. The racking process requires a siphon or a tap. In this cellar, the vintner uses both methods depending on the barrel. Some barrels have small wooden taps fitted near the bottom, above where the lees have settled. These make racking relatively simple. Other barrels require a siphon, a long tube that can be lowered carefully into the wine, drawing it off from above the sediment. The first barrel is fitted with a tap. The vintner places a bucket beneath the tap, opens it slightly. Wine begins to flow. At first it comes in spurts, air mixed with liquid, but then it settles into a steady stream. The wine is clear, a beautiful ruby red that catches the candlelight. It looks like liquid garnet, translucent and bright. The sound of the wine flowing is different from the sound of the must. It is lighter, more musical. The wine splashes into the bucket with a bright, ringing sound. Splash, trickle, splash. The bucket fills quickly, and the worker carries it to the empty barrel, pours it in. Again that wonderful hollow boom as the wine hits the bottom of the barrel, the pitch rising as more is added. The vintner watches the flow from the tap carefully. As the level in the barrel drops, the wine that flows becomes less clear. Particles begin to appear in it, small flecks of yeast and grape material. When this happens, he knows the level is getting close to the lees. He slows the flow, watching carefully. The wine must be drawn off without disturbing the sediment layer. Finally, he closes the tap. Perhaps 2 inches of liquid remain in the bottom of the barrel, mixed with the thick layer of lees. This cannot be saved. It will be discarded. Better to lose a small amount of wine than to include the sediment, which would cloud the wine and impart off flavors. The worker tips the barrel carefully, pouring out the lees. They come out as a thick, dark sludge, falling into a collection bucket. The barrel is then rinsed with a small amount of clean water, swirled to remove any remaining particles, and the rinse water is discarded. The barrel is clean now, ready to be refilled with wine from another batch, or to be stored until next year's harvest. But the racked wine, the clear ruby liquid that now sits in the fresh barrel, this is precious. This is the result of weeks of work, of careful monitoring and adjustment. The vintner tastes it again, drawing a sample with his cup. The flavor has changed even in the short time since fermentation ended. It is cleaner now, brighter, without the heavy yeasty character of the fermenting wine. The fruit flavors are more distinct. The tannins are still firm, but seem more integrated. The process of racking continues through the day. Barrel after barrel is carefully drained, the clear wine separated from the lees. It is slow work, requiring patience and attention. But when it is done, the cellar has been transformed. The barrels that contained fermenting must now contain young wine, clarified and beginning its journey toward maturity. And now comes the long wait, the aging. This is the part of winemaking that cannot be rushed, that cannot be controlled. The vintner can only create the right conditions and then step back, allowing time to work its slow magic. The cellar falls silent. The constant hissing of fermentation is gone. The bubbling has stopped. The barrels sit in their rows, motionless, patient. Inside each one, wine is resting, settling, evolving. The changes now are subtle, invisible to the casual observer, but they are happening nonetheless. The oak barrels themselves play a crucial role in aging. The wood is not inert. It breathes. Tiny amounts of oxygen pass through the oak staves, entering the wine in amounts so small they can barely be measured. But over weeks and months, this tiny oxidation softens the wine. The sharp tannins round out. The fruit flavors deepen. The wine becomes more complex, more harmonious. The wood also imparts flavor. Oak contains compounds that dissolve slowly into the wine. Vanilla, spice, a subtle toastiness. These flavors meld with the fruit, adding layers of complexity. A wine aged in oak tastes different from a wine aged in clay or glass. The oak becomes part of the wine's story, part of its identity. The cellar is cool and dark and very quiet. The temperature is constant, rarely varying by more than a few degrees throughout the year. This stability is essential. Wild temperature swings can stress the wine, can restart fermentation if there is any residual sugar. can cause the barrels to expand and contract in ways that might introduce too much air. The vintner's work during this period is mostly watching and waiting. He visits the cellar daily, walking between the barrels, placing his hand on each one, feeling for any unusual warmth that might indicate renewed fermentation. He checks the bungs, making sure they are secure but not too tight. He listens, though there is little to hear now except the occasional faint creak of oak or the drip of condensation from the stone ceiling. Once a month, or sometimes more often, he performs another racking. Even clear wine will throw sediment over time as particles slowly settle. Dead yeast cells, fragments of grape material, tartrate crystals that precipitate out of the wine as it cools. This sediment must be removed to keep the wine bright and clean. The process is the same as before. Transfer the wine carefully from one barrel to another, leaving the sediment behind. Each racking makes the wine a little clearer, a little brighter, and each time the vintner tastes, tracking the wine's evolution. The changes are subtle at first. The wine seems a bit softer this month than last. The tannins are less aggressive. The fruit flavors are evolving, becoming more complex, showing hints of dried fruit and spice alongside the fresh berry notes. The oak influence is becoming more apparent, adding vanilla and a subtle sweetness. Months pass. The seasons change above ground. Fall becomes winter. Snow falls on the vineyard, covering the dormant vines. Spring comes and the vines wake, pushing out new shoots, new leaves. Summer arrives and a new crop of grapes begins to ripen. And through it all, the wine ages in the silent cellar, changing slowly, imperceptibly, day by day. The vintner tastes regularly. He has developed a palate over decades, an ability to read the wine, to understand where it is in its development, to know when it is ready. This wine, he decides, needs time. The tannins are still too firm. The flavors have not yet fully integrated. It will age for a full year, perhaps longer. And so the waiting continues. The cellar remains quiet. The barrels breathe. The wine softens and deepens and becomes itself. There is something meditative about this period, this long patience. In a world that moves quickly, that demands immediate results, the wine refuses to be rushed. It will be ready when it is ready, and not before. The vintner finds peace in this. He has learned to work with time, not against it. He has learned that the best things cannot be forced, only encouraged. He provides the right conditions, the cool cellar, the good oak barrels, the careful racking, and then he waits. This is his craft, not control but stewardship, not dominance but partnership with natural processes. On quiet evenings, he sometimes sits in the cellar, a single candle burning on a small table. He sits among the barrels, listening to the silence. It is not a complete silence. There are small sounds, the occasional drip of water, the faint settling of stones, the creak of a barrel as the oak adjusts to changes in humidity. These sounds are the voice of the cellar, and the vintner knows them all. He thinks about the wine aging in the barrels around him. Each barrel contains the story of a vintage, the weather that year, the timing of the harvest, the particular fermentation. Every decision he made, every adjustment, has contributed to what the wine is becoming. And yet he did not create it, not really. He guided it. The grapes created themselves, drawing on sun and soil. The yeast transformed the must, following ancient biochemical pathways. The oak contributed its flavor. The time did its work. The vintner simply made space for all of this to happen. After many months, he begins to sense that the wine is approaching readiness. The tannins have softened significantly. The flavors are integrated and harmonious. The oak has contributed its character without overwhelming the fruit. The wine has achieved balance. It is time for a formal tasting, a careful evaluation to determine if the wine is truly ready. The vintner prepares his tools. He needs a wine thief, a specialized glass tube used to extract samples from barrels. The thief is simple in design, a long tube open at both ends. When lowered into wine and then lifted out, The wine fills the tube and is held there by the vacuum created when you place your thumb over the top end. He selects a barrel to sample, one that he believes may be particularly good. He removes the bung, setting it aside carefully. He lowers the wine thief into the barrel slowly until the bottom end is submerged in the wine. The tube fills with liquid, dark red rising up through the glass. When it is full, he places his thumb firmly over the top opening and lifts. The wine thief comes out of the barrel with wine held inside, trapped by the vacuum. He carries it carefully to where candles provide good light. He holds it up, examining the wine's color. The candlelight penetrates the liquid, illuminating it from within. The color is deep garnet, bright and clear. There is no cloudiness, no particles suspended in the wine. The clarification is complete. He tilts the thief over a glass, releasing his thumbs slightly to allow the wine to flow out. It pours in a thin stream, filling the glass with perhaps 3 ounces of wine. He sets down the thief and picks up the glass, holding it to the light. Beautiful. The color is even throughout, with a slight variation from deep red at the center to lighter ruby at the edges. This gradient is normal, desirable even in well-made wine. He brings the glass to his nose. The first smell is always the most revealing. He inhales slowly, gently, allowing the aromas to register. There is fruit, yes, but it is different now from the young wine. The fresh berry notes have evolved into darker, richer flavors. Dried cherry, plum, a hint of raisin. The oak has contributed vanilla and spice, noticeable but not dominant. There is also an earthy quality, a minerality that speaks of the soil in which the vines grew. He swirls the glass gently, oxygenating the wine, releasing more aromas. He smells again. More complexity emerges. Leather, tobacco leaf, a hint of black pepper. These are the flavors of age, of time in barrel. They layer over the fruit, adding depth and interest. Now the taste. He takes a small sip, just enough to coat his mouth. He does not swallow immediately. He moves the wine around, ensuring it touches all parts of his palate. The first sensation is fruit, the dark cherry and plum he detected on the nose. Then comes the structure, the acidity that provides brightness, the tannins that provide grip and texture. The alcohol warms gently but does not burn. There is no harshness, no rough edges. Everything is in balance. He swallows. The finish is long, the flavors lingering, evolving. The fruit gradually fades, leaving behind the oak spice and a pleasant dryness. He breathes out slowly, and more aromas appear retroactively, traveling up the back of his throat to his nasal passages. This is how wine reveals its final secrets, in the finish, in the aftertaste. He tastes again, confirming his first impression. Yes, this wine is good, very good. The aging has done its work. The wine is ready, or nearly so. Perhaps another month in barrel to add just a touch more oak character, but no more than that. After that, it will be time to bottle. He samples several other barrels, repeating the process. Each wine is slightly different, reflecting the subtle variations in grapes, in fermentation, in the particular barrel's character. Some are lighter, more elegant. Others are richer, more powerful. All are good. This has been a successful vintage. He records his impressions in a worn leather book, making notes about each barrel. This record is valuable, a reference for future years. When next year's wine is aging, he can compare it to these notes, can adjust his techniques based on what worked and what did not. The tasting complete, he returns to the barrel he sampled first. It is time for a crucial step. This barrel, along with the others that are ready, must be sealed properly. Until now, they have been fitted with loose bungs that allow gas exchange. But soon, the wine will be transferred to bottles, and before that happens, the barrels must be sealed completely to prevent any oxidation. He selects a permanent bung, a solid wooden stopper that fits snugly into the opening at the top of the barrel. These bungs are carefully shaped, tapered so they can be driven into the hole and will seal tightly. He positions it in the opening, making sure it is aligned correctly. Then he takes up a wooden mallet, a heavy tool with a broad head. This is the moment of finality, the moment when the aging wine is sealed in, protected, saved. He raises the mallet and strikes the bung. Thud. The sound echoes through the cellar, deep and solid. The bung sinks a fraction of an inch into the hole. He strikes again. Thud. And again. Thud. With each strike, the bung drives deeper, the fit becoming tighter. After several blows, the bung is fully seated. He tests it, trying to wiggle it with his fingers. It does not move. The seal is complete. The wine is safe inside the barrel, protected from air, from light, from any contamination. It will rest there until bottling day, sleeping in the cool darkness. He moves to the next barrel, repeating the process. Select a bung, position it, raise the mallet. Thud, thud, thud. The sound is rhythmic and final, like the closing of a door, like the ending of a chapter. Each sealed barrel is a completion, a preservation, a promise kept. The work continues until all the barrels that are ready have been sealed. They stand in their rows now, silent and complete. The vintner steps back, surveying his work. This cellar, this underground room carved from stone and earth, holds the labor of many months. From the harvest through the treading and pressing, through the fermentation and racking, through the long months of aging, the wine has been his constant companion, his responsibility, his craft. But now the active work is done. The wine sleeps in the barrels, sealed and safe. There is nothing more for him to do but wait for bottling day, and then the wine will leave the cellar, will find its way into the world. It will be poured at tables, served with meals, shared among friends. It will bring pleasure and warmth. It will be, finally, what it was always meant to be. The vintner extinguishes most of the candles, leaving only one burning near the entrance. The cellar falls into deeper shadow. The barrels are dark shapes now, barely visible. He stands there a moment longer, listening to the silence. It is a peaceful silence, a satisfied silence. The work is done. The wine is made. The transformation is complete. He climbs the stone stairs slowly, his footsteps echoing off the walls. At the top, he pauses and looks back one final time. The single candle flickers far below, a tiny point of light in the darkness. Around it, unseen but present, the barrels rest. The wine sleeps. Everything is still. He closes the cellar door with a soft thud and slides the bolt home. The cellar is sealed now, just as the barrels are sealed. The wine is protected, held safe in the cool earth. Winter will come and go. Spring will return. The vines will wake and grow and fruit. And when the next harvest arrives, the cycle will begin again. New grapes will be crushed. New must will ferment. New wine will age in these same barrels. But that is the future. Tonight, the present work is complete. The vineyard sleeps under the darkening sky. The cellar is quiet below. The barrels rest in their rows, their precious cargo aging slowly, imperceptibly, becoming what it is meant to become. And as the barrels rest in rows, breathing slowly in the cool dark, the work is done. The harvest is saved, and you are safe. Sleep well.